So my name is Landon Edgar, and I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Pharmacology and Toxicology here at U of T in the Faculty of Medicine. I'm also cross-appointed to the departments of Immunology and Chemistry at U of T. My academic background is I'm actually a U of T alumnus. I did my undergraduate in pharmacology and chemistry here, graduated in 2011. And then I went to do a PhD in organic chemistry here in our Department of Chemistry, which I finished in 2016. About a month after I defended my thesis, I then moved to the United States to the Scripps Research Institute in La Jolla, California, where I joined a laboratory that focused really on carbohydrate immunology research. And I entered that laboratory really as a chemist and developed a lot of skills in the immunology side of research, which has inspired new directions for what I do in my independent career.
Could you share a current project or study you're excited about?
Yeah, so we recently finished up a rather comprehensive study looking at the sugar coatings that exist on really all immune cells in humans and other mammals. What we found is particularly interesting is that these sugar coatings, which are not really nutritional sugar, they're actually immunological sugars. They influence how immune cells function, how they respond to what we would call an immunological insult. And there had been really no comprehensive atlas or compendium describing which sugar molecules exist on which really white blood cell types, if we're talking from an immunology perspective. So my lab has recently curated what we're calling the first atlas of really immunophysiology, glycoimmunophysiology, actually. And that work is now shedding new light on how carbohydrate coatings on immune cells change in response to stimulus, and how we can manipulate them through maybe more chemical or biological means, like artificial manipulation, to bias the function of those cells for therapeutic benefit.
How do you involve undergraduate and graduate students in your research projects?
We have both undergraduate and graduate students that are integral members of our research program. Undergraduates are wonderful to welcome into the group because although they typically don't have a pre-existing research skill set, what they do bring is a lot of energy and enthusiasm to the lab. So our undergraduates are typically paired with a more senior graduate student mentor, typically a PhD student who's in the sort of the middle or the latter half of their degree. And the undergraduate will work very closely with the PhD student on a project related to, but generally distinct from their core thesis work. And this provides the undergraduate students an opportunity to develop skill sets in research, pursue a project that they can eventually really call their own, and ultimately, help our graduate student mentors advance their own research. This has resulted in situations where undergraduates are co-authors on scientific papers that the laboratory produces. And we think there's a great synergy that happens when those two parties work in unison together.
How do you envision your research impacting healthcare or medicine in the next 5 to 10 years?
So our research is really at this stage fundamental but informative. So what I mean by that is we're looking at mechanisms that control immune responses that act through molecular pathways that have really not been exploited for therapeutic benefit by others. This is a really rapidly emerging space, this carbohydrate immunology sector. And we really envision the chemical tools that part of my laboratory produces as being these prototype next generation therapeutics that allow us to now in distinct and sometimes synergistic ways augment existing therapeutic approaches in diseases such as arthritis, multiple sclerosis, and even some cancers, while also carving out sort of these unique niches that allow us to modulate pathways that had previously just not been modulatable, for a lack of a better word. So we're excited that we can both augment existing pharmaceutical therapies and create completely new classes of drugs.
Outside of work, what are your hobbies or interests?
Well, since I'm an assistant professor, my time outside of work is actually rather limited, but I have recently found a new love of gardening. So my partner and I have spent a fair bit of time this summer doing that. It's been a great rainy summer to have a healthy garden. We also recently adopted 2 kittens, so we spend a lot of time doting over them. My partner is also a scientist, so we spend a lot of time discussing science while we're doing some of these other activities. And we really also enjoy just living in Toronto and experiencing a lot of what the city has to offer.
What's something surprising that people might not know about you?
I really love technology. So I like to integrate technology into my research whenever possible. I think that I've really always had a strong track record of adopting new technologies, really, before they've become important drivers of current research programs. So, for example, we use a lot of really cutting-edge single-cell analysis technologies that are now becoming pervasive, but I was really using them heavily even about 5 years ago before they were widely spread. So I always like to introduce technological innovation to the research program. This is expanding beyond even just what we'd consider sort of traditional scientific workflows. I'm thinking about ways we can introduce augmented reality into some of our small molecule design, and thinking about how we can marry computation, drug discovery, and hopefully AI one day into a more unified workflow.
If you could have dinner with any person, past or present, who would it be and why?
Well, there's a very famous carbohydrate chemist, Raymond Lemieux, and he worked in Canada many, many years ago. In fact, my academic lineage is sort of descended from Dr. Lemieux. And he is often credited as being one of the foundational members of the carbohydrate chemistry community. I think that a lot of the chemical innovations that came out of his lab have really transformed how we can manipulate sugars for the kind of research that my lab does now. And I would really love to have dinner with him, pick his brain about how some of those ideas manifested, and really throw some of mine across his field of view as well to see what he thinks.
If you could switch careers for a day, what would you choose and why?
I think like a lot of organic chemists, I really like to cook. So if I could change careers for one day, I'd like to see what it's like to work in a high-end kitchen somewhere. I know that that's a really intense environment, and I would just like to see how it kind of compared to my day-to-day work when I was in the thick of doing chemistry as a student.
Backpacking adventure or luxury resort vacation?
Probably the luxury resort vacation.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Pineapple on pizza? Yes or no?
Yes.
Dogs or cats?
I'm going to say cats right now, but I used to be dogs.
Fiction or nonfiction books?
Nonfiction.
Early bird or night owl?
Night owl.
Sweet or savory?
Savory.
Summer or winter?
Winter.
Comedy or drama movies?
Comedy.
Thank you very much for coming in today.
Thank you very much for having me. It was great to chat, and I hope we get to talk again soon.